All praises to the Most High, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Raha Kwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles and elder bishops of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, laboring in His truth in all sincerity. Revelation chapter 13, verse 16. And He causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. This is an article that I came across just a few moments ago. This was published on August 6th, updated on August 7th. This can be found on zmescience.com, titled, "This Origami Implant Unfolds Under the Skin to Monitor Health. Sometimes the smartest way to make a medical device smaller isn't to shrink it, it's to fold it." And that is the origami implant right there. And I'll get back into that in just a few moments. And before I get started, actually, I had something that I wanted to go in real fast with this origami implant. That term there, origami. So I was just curious on the definition, and this is what Google AI Overview gave me. Origami is the traditional Japanese art of folding flat sheets of paper into distinct 2- or 3-dimensional shapes, such as animals, flowers, and geometric objects. The word comes from two Japanese terms, oru, which means to fold, and kami, which means paper. And those are a couple of examples there of how they fold sheets of paper into these little objects here. You can see here like butterflies or a whale that looks like, but that is the overall concept of what that is there. So let's get back into this. Alright, doctors have long wanted implantable sensors that can continuously monitor a person's health without requiring major surgery or bulky external equipment. It's a big engineering challenge. A device must be small enough to insert without major surgery, but large enough to carry an antenna, electronic circuits, and multiple sensors. A new device called MiFi, that's MiFi with an M, not to be confused with Wi-Fi with a W. A new device called MiFi tries to escape that trade-off by changing shape. Developed by researchers from the Imperial College London and the University of Southern California, this origami-inspired implant slips beneath the skin through a tiny incision before unfolding into its full operating shape, according to Farhat Gouder, one of the study authors and a professor of intelligent interfaces at Imperial College London. This is the first sensor of its kind. So before I go further into this article here, let's just take a brief look at Wi-Fi and MiFi. I'm going to scroll down just a little. I'm not going to read the entire article here. All right, so what's the difference between Wi-Fi and MiFi? Simply put, Wi-Fi is a technology that makes wireless intent connectivity possible. It's built into many devices such as traditional internet routers, cellular routers, mobile hotspots, MiFis, smartphones, tablets, and the like. A Wi-Fi network can be established through an internet service provider or cellular network. It all depends on your Wi-Fi access point. MiFi is a type of Wi-Fi access point. There is a wide variety of MiFi models available to fit your needs. They're able to connect Wi-Fi enabled devices to the internet via the cellular network. Portable, they'll keep you connected when away from your home Wi-Fi. Cellular signal is needed for a MiFi to work. Weak cell reception will impact data speeds for all connected devices. So that's all I'm going to read there. Just a quick difference between Wi-Fi and MiFi. And this will all start coming together in just a few moments here. And I'll go back to the article. And as we see here, once again, developed by researchers from the Imperial College London and the University of Southern California, this origami-inspired implant slips beneath the skin through a tiny incision before unfolding into its full operating shape. So let's go back to Revelation chapter 13, verse 16 once again. This was the opening scripture that I used. And we're going to look at charagma. So charagma, a stamp, an imprinted mark. Of the mark stamped on the forehead or the right hand as the badge of the followers of the Antichrist, the mark branded upon horses, then carved, sculpture, graven work of idolatrous images. Strong's definition, a scratch or etching, stamp as a badge of servitude or sculptured figure, statue, graven mark. So once again, we see that this particular piece of technology here, the origami implant, this is what they'll be inserting through a minor surgical procedure into the brain, and this supposedly is to fight epilepsy. So once again, and I'm going to keep reading here, folding instead of shrinking. Most efforts to make implants less evasive focus on miniaturizing their components, but sensors and electronics need physical space, and there's only so much real estate in our bodies. So the MiFi team took a different approach. Instead of forcing the implant to remain tiny after insertion, the researchers designed it to temporarily fold. Before implementation, their device is folded using origami-inspired patterns that dramatically reduce its footprint, allowing it to pass through a much smaller incision. And this is the process here. So it originally starts off as folded. It's a small size for insertion. And as it's inserted in a folded position. Next is released under the skin, and we see this is the largest size. This is what it unfolds as. And this is the unfolded operating shape here. So this is actually what they want to put on the brain here. And once again, this is supposedly used or will be used to help fight or combat epilepsy. So once beneath the skin, it unfolds into a square measuring about 2.1 centimeters by 2.1 centimeters and just 0.3 millimeters thick. The larger operating shape provides enough room for antennas, sensors, and electronic circuits while keeping the implantation procedure minimally invasive. The key innovation is that the device's insertion size is no longer the same as its operating size. Conventional implantable sensors often become larger as more functions are added, making implantation more invasive. By separating these two requirements, the foldable design avoids the usual compromise between size and performance. The researchers report that the folded design can reduce the implant's insertion footprint by as much as 6-fold. No battery needed. MiFi receives power through near-field communication, NFC, the short-range wireless technology that's also used in contactless cards and smartphone payments. And I said this in a past video of mine. The way this technology is starting to advance, this particular technology may not always come in the actual form of a microchip. Sometimes it may look more like an actual square device, which is what we're seeing up here. And I've done some videos in the past about this, showing the various types of implantable chips that they'll be using once this thing is fully rolled out. You know, the most common will actually be the microchip itself, but they'll come in other forms. And I'm only saying this because what you'll have a lot of simple people out here who will use this as an excuse to get this actual mark here. They'll say, oh, well, you guys said it was a microchip. That's not a microchip right there. That's exactly how they'll approach this thing, not understanding that it's not necessarily the microchip itself or by itself. It's more so of the technology used, which is the NFC, the near field communication. That's what gives it the ability for you to be able to buy and sell. So whether it's an actual microchip or something that looks more like this, what you're seeing on the screen right here, that copper colored device right there, whatever it is, it's going to have some type of NFC or near field communication ability, which will give the person who has this implanted beneath their skin the ability to buy and sell and to participate in technology. So once again, you know, the most common form of this will actually be the microchip, what we've actually been seeing in the little glass capsules and stuff. But sometimes it won't look like that. It may look like something else. But the important part of this is it's the near field, the NFC or the near field communication ability that will make you accessible in society, I should say, where the person who takes it will be able to actually participate in society until they actually turn your chip off because you got out of line. So I'm going to get back into this real fast here. Folding instead of shrinking. Most efforts to make implants less invasive focus on miniaturizing their components, but sensors and electronics need physical space, and there's only so much real estate in our bodies. So the MiFi team took a different approach. Instead of forcing the implant to remain tiny after insertion, the researchers designed it to temporarily fold. I do apologize for that. I scrolled up a little too far. So I'll start back from here. No battery needed. MiFi receives power through near-field communication or NFC, the short-range wireless technology that's also used in contactless cards and smartphone payments. Which brings me into something else here. You know, they're really not hiding anything anymore. You know, this particular near-field technology, you know, it has been said before, and I'll get into the individuals who actually said it, but I actually typed in phones will be inside your body. That was just something to actually bring me to what I was looking for, which was actually this. Industry leaders and tech pioneers predict that future communication devices may move past handheld screens to become wearable or implantable technology by 2030. Coinciding with the rise of 6G networks, while executives like Nokia CEO Pekka Lundmark have suggested that physical interfaces could be built directly into the body, experts hold mixed views on whether invasive implants will replace standard pocket phones. Current tech and predictions. brain-computer interfaces. Companies like Neuralink test chips beneath the skull that let users control external tech with thoughts. Industry forecast leaders suggest future networks and hardware could shift towards smart glasses or embedded skin units. Body area networks. Researchers are exploring using human skin and tissue fields to transmit low frequency data signals instead of traditional radio waves. So of course there will be some challenges and concerns, public hesitancy. Many users resist the idea of routine surgery or internal chips for basic daily tasks. Privacy risks. Direct neural or biological links raise major concerns about personal data security and thought monitoring. And then practical issues. External devices like phones or glass remain far easier to upgrade, repair, and turn off. So this particular technology, this RFID technology and near field communication, they go hand in hand. And the objective here is to put these things inside the body. Once again, they want you to become one with the cloud itself. So that is what this whole thing is about here, which is connecting your body with not just your body, but also they want to control your thoughts as well. With certain technologies, once they put into your head, once you start getting into, MK Ultra and stuff, they put these devices in your head. Now they're actually controlling what you do. There have been some people who have actually come out and said, they've actually been used in experiments and have actually attacked people. Or even recently there was a young Edomite chick who was killed somewhere in North Carolina on a train, and the individual who was responsible for it basically came out and said in an interview that he had something implanted in his head, which goes back into MK Ultra. Now that's just what the suspect said. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's just harping on the fact that what I'm saying is, these people, the whole intent is to put this stuff inside your body. And the way that it works is it would have to be, for you to be able to have access to anything, there would have to be some type of RFID or NFC type technology, which actually would be what connects you to the grid, so to speak, or how you would become, for lack of a better word, how you will become useful in society. Because without this technology inside your system, you're pretty much going to be useless in society. You're pretty much going to be at the point where everything you have, all of your thoughts are going to be basically around your faith in the Most High, Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai. Without this particular technology, you're basically cut off. You're not going to be able to buy anything. You're not going to be able to sell anything. You won't be able to pay bills. You'll eventually lose your house, your car. Your lights will get turned off. That's if you still even have a house first before your lights get cut off. The bare necessities that you would need in life, you wouldn't have access to anymore, because you wouldn't have this particular type of technology implanted into your body. And that is the whole purpose of what they're trying to do, is to make you one with the cloud. Whereas we're supposed to be one, or ahad, with the Most High, Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai. So everything that this man does, everything that Esau Edom does, along with the other nations who follow behind him, is completely contrary to what the Most High actually commanded of us, actually instructed us to do. And one of those instructions was not to get this particular mark. That was an actual warning, because those who receive this mark, they are set for destruction. So I'm going to get back into this article real fast here. A nearby external reader generates the electromagnetic field needed to power the implant. The same wireless connection carries measurements from the device to an external computer. Not having a battery means more space for a suite of sensors, an approach that was also followed by NASA in some of their projects. So I'm going to pretty much stop there. The rest of this is I've pretty much hit the point of what this particular article was about. For right now, though, I'll start here again. For now, this particular technology is only being experimented in rats. But remember what I just said about the whole idea is they want to put this particular technology in your body, starting with cell phones, and of course, they don't have to actually physically put the entire cell phone in your body. All they need is the actual chips that's inside there, which is RFID, which have the RFID radio frequency identification, as well as the NFC, near field communication. Near field communication is how, some of us pay our bills using our cell phones. And that's exactly, it's used as a means of being able to make a payment or even purchase something. So if you go on Amazon and you purchase something on your cell phone off of their website, that is the NFC technology inside your phone that is doing that. They want to be able to put those particular RFID technology and NFC technology, they go hand in hand, they work together. They want to put those particular pieces of technology inside your body once again to make you one with the cloud. And I'll get into that real fast here. And I couldn't remember the individuals' names. One of the individuals was already mentioned in the article that I was reading. So two prominent technology figures have predicted that future communication devices or smartphones will be built directly into the human body. Martin Cooper, widely known as the father of the cell phone and inventor of the first handheld mobile phone, stated in 2023 that future generations will have devices embedded under the skin of their heirs. And then also there was an individual by the name of Pekka Lundmark, and I've already mentioned that name. He suggested these devices wouldn't need charging because the human body itself would act as a natural power source. Pekka Lundmark, the CEO of Nokia, stated at the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos 2022 that by 2030, which coincides with the commercial rollout of 6G networks, smartphones as we know them will no longer be the most common interface, and many of these things will be directly built into our bodies. I'm just going to see here if that's all I wanted to go into of this article. Once again, this particular device here, it's only being experimented with rats at the very moment here. So right now they are using this and it's being tested on rats, but we always know that the next step after that, once it works on rats, they'll test it on a few rabbits, then a few cats and dogs, which is what they've already done with these particular RFID microchips now that you see. Now they started using them on cats and dogs, but basically telling people, hey, if your cat or dog comes up missing, you'll be able to find it. Next thing you know is being put in kids now. Hey, if your 5-year-old kid gets kidnapped or is missing, we'll be able to track them down with this here, this device that's implanted under the skin. And this is what they do. They make something seem like it's, first they use this line of reasoning here, for missing pets or missing children, or all types of medical miracles, so to speak, and that brings me to like 2nd Thessalonians. A lot of times they'll go into like these particular microchips that they want to put inside people's body. They tell you that they can help cure epilepsy or blindness or paralysis, even giving people who are totally paralyzed the ability to move a cursor just by looking at the computer screen. So this is the type of stuff that they do, and this is the type of stuff that how they're going to actually fool people into getting this, just like 2nd Thessalonians here says. And I'll read this in the NLT starting at verse 9, and I'll read verse 9 and 10. This man will come to do the work of Satan with counterfeit power and signs and miracles. He will use every kind of evil deception to fool those on their way to destruction, because they refuse to love and accept the truth that would save them. And I'll read verse 11. So the Most High will cause them to be greatly deceived, and they will believe these lies. Then they will be condemned, for enjoying evil rather than believing the truth. And that's basically what this is. A lot of people are not going to want to be cut off from Babylon. A lot of people, they go about their day-to-day lives, things that the topics here that the men of great millstone bring up in these particular prophecies that they go into. The average person out there in the world, the average 2/3 Jake out there, this stuff doesn't even cross their minds. They see all of this stuff happening. They see the data centers going up, and it never even crosses their mind what's at play here, and just how close we are to this place coming to an end. But they're not going to want to separate themselves from this place. They enjoy a life, coming home every day. They get to play PlayStation. They get to watch cable all night. The ability to just go out and about, basically unhindered, and a lot of that is going to come to an end. And a lot of it is going to start to cease when you're not able to travel the way that you're accustomed to traveling, when you're not able to just move about the way that you're able to move about now, because you don't have this particular technology, which is the MOTB, the RFID micro C-HIP, and with its NFC capabilities. You're not going to have the ability to go inside a store or to go anywhere to make any type of payments. You're not going to be able to, you use stuff like Cash App, that peer-to-peer transactions and stuff where, hey, I can send, if my brother or my sister needs money, I can go right on Cash App and just send them that money. When they're not going to have the ability to do that, a lot of people are going to lose it out here. And they're going to fold. And they're going to get that mark because they don't want to be separate from this. They don't want to be separated. That thought, it never occurs to them that this is going to fall one day. This is not always going to be here. So a lot of people are going to basically go down, So with that being said, I'm going to start wrapping it up here. And I'll go to Acts chapter 17, verse 29. And I just want to come here real fast to point something out. So Acts 17 and 29 in the KJV. For as much then as we are the offspring of the Most High, we ought not to think that the Godhead is like unto gold or silver or stone, engraven by art and man's device. So once again, we see that the word graven, that is also G5490, which is charagma. And I'll go into this one more time here. And as we see in the Strong's definition, the charagma is a scratch or an etching. So what is meant by etching is in cosmetic procedures like abdominal etching. Etching is done through tiny incisions. Surgeons make small millimeter-sized cuts in natural skin folds or the belly button. They insert a thin tube called a macro cannula through these tiny openings to sculpt and suction out precise layers of fat. That's all I'm going to read there. Just wanted to hit that real fast. And once again, this particular technology, as we can see right now, they're about ready to roll this stuff out. Right now they're coming up with all of the use cases for it. Once again, like I said, you've seen the medical use cases, you've heard them, whether it's curing epilepsy or blindness, curing paralysis, things of that effect, or, even right now you have some people, that's actually getting this particular mark. We see what happened in Sweden, where close to 10,000 people who have voluntarily already accepted it. Then you have some companies right here in the United States. There's about 2 or 3 companies, Dangerous Things being one of them, that's actually selling it. And they're selling it at a very cheap price. And people are actually buying this stuff. They're buying it. And then once you look at the stock markets and stuff, and you start looking at some of the stock signals for these particular forms of technology, you see that these stock signals are going up, which basically lets you know where this thing is heading. So this is about to come to fruition, and it is going to come to fruition because the Most High has already spoken. This has already been prophesied, and this is the vision that John saw. So there's a lot of people out here who probably still are in denial about it, or they probably just don't know. They probably have no idea what's going on. Which is at this point in the game, it's sad, but we understand that most of these, especially if they're our people, more than likely they are of the 2/3, or if they've actually heard this before and they've just disregarded it, that's how you know that they are of the 2/3, because this is something right now that's actually happening. They're getting all of the infrastructure in place. Once again, data centers are going up all over this country, all over the world, as a matter of fact. So the particular infrastructure that they need for this to come to fruition, it's already underway. And you see that they're basically saying by 2030, and that's just a rough number. The more AI advances, that's just a rough estimate when they say 2030. The more AI advances, the more this thing is going to be sped up. The more they keep developing robots, and these robots are self-learning, and the more they keep saying, we're actually moving closer and closer to the singularity, which is when AI is basically, it supersedes man's knowledge. A lot of these particular AI robots that you're seeing, they're going to be, those are going to be the ones actually, conducting this particular surgery, this minor surgery to put these particular chips in your head or in your hand. So the more this technology advances, we may not be looking at 2030. We're more than halfway through 2026 right now. So we're basically 3.5 years away from what they're predicting, in terms of, the human body being able to hold, being able to hold a cell phone, or at least the cell phone technology, giving you the ability to speak to people without actually having to hold a cell phone. And that's what this is all about. They are playing the role of the Most High here. As we read in 2 Thessalonians, he's trying to sit in the throne of the Most High. And this is why this place is going to fall. So with that being said, I'm going to end this video there. I do pray that this video has been edifying and reaches the ears it's supposed to reach. Shalom.